Okay, it looks like we are live on recording and live on YouTube. So we'll go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, September 12th, 2022. The time is 6:04 p.m. We'll go ahead and do roll call. Sweat.
Here.
Okay, just real quick too, you guys got to remember to keep those mics a little closer. There's a few folks that were drifting off last meeting. We're having a hard time hearing. So, okay, Sweat is here. Rojas.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Zwick.
Here.
Peyton.
Here.
And Nathan.
Here.
All right, we do have everyone in attendance tonight. And Rachel, looks like since you are in the chambers, you can go ahead and lead us off tonight.
Thank you.
With the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
Okay, thank you. Excuse absences tonight. We have none. Item D, agenda approval. We'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Swick to approve tonight's agenda. Second by Peyton, I believe. Any further discussion on agenda approval before we vote?
And Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yep, go ahead.
I just wanted to reiterate that the agenda was amended pre-meeting due to a time-sensitive issue needing to be referred from the Planning Commission meeting. So hopefully you all have the agenda that has the parentheses that says amended to include item MF in front of you.
Should be M5, right?
Sorry, M5. I am
Yeah.
under the weather. I apologize. M5.
Okay, yeah, M5, and that's the petition for alteration to platted utility easement, Watson 2022. So
Heidi, I do not. Can you email that to me? Are you?
It was previously emailed and hopefully there are copies available there in chambers that can be handed out. If not, should be in your email and I can send it again.
Okay, I don't have it in my email, so if I could have.
Okay.
Maybe I deleted it.
okay, we'll get it coming your way, Harmony. Okay, so we do have a motion to approve and a second, and discussion was clarified to make sure we had included the right agenda, which included item M5. Any additional discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the agenda approval tonight. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved with a vote of 6 in the affirmative. Okay, we have item E, the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and one vote. Council member may request to remove an item for discussion and a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. Tonight's consent agenda consists of item 1, approval of minutes, and those are the minutes of the regular meeting dated August 8th, 2022, and minutes of the special meeting dated August 31st, 2022. And no additional items other than those approval of minutes.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sweat to approve tonight's consent agenda, second by Rojas. Any further discussion on the consent agenda before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on approval of tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, tonight's consent agenda is also approved with a vote of 6-0. Item F, mayoral proclamations, none. Item G, public presentation prior notice. Each presenter has up to 10 minutes. And tonight we have Sue Burnett, resident of Soldovia, to discuss sewer, water, and trees.
Firstly, I'll address the trees. I believe that we have a ordinance here for the height of buildings. I'm not quite sure what the height requirement is limited to, but recently, in the last 5 years, we've had major winds taking down many, many trees in the city and elsewhere. And I think that maybe we ought to address some of the tree issues here. If we have a building height, maybe we ought to have a little issue and, thought process with the how high we can grow these trees with no roots in the city limits. And what we could do to maybe maintain or help maintain residents to avoid this, because as we all know, spruce trees can grow probably 5 to 10 feet a year. So it doesn't take them long to become treacherous. And secondly, I have 3 city lots. Well, I have 4, and I have no water or sewer or access to 3 of those lots and have not. And my feelings are that I would like to sell those 3 lots, and I'm presenting to the city that if they can come to some kind of, information for me on how I can, if I can, and if not, I would like my real mill rate to be reduced for the 3 lots that do not have any access, and or tell me what I can put there for, say, water and sewer, etc., because we have rules and regulations about no outhouses and this and that and the other. And I was not applied a sewer outage in that area down there for those 4 lots. It ran across the water to Hayes's property, which is borders me, but it's all downhill from lot number 1. And all those properties there were never granted any access to hook up to any sewer and water process, mainly because the out of town owner was not here to really deal with those kind of things, apparently, when they were putting the sewer and water in. But it really makes no sense to have that city limits if I can't be provided some kind of service in those areas. It makes it hard to sell because there's no access. And A Street apparently was deemed like fairly expensive to put in. So what I'm essentially is happening to me over there, and has been for the last 40 years I've owned it, is I'm being cut off at the knees, and my tax rates are not, comparable with what's going on over there. You can't ask somebody, this is just assessed. Then let's just say lot number 1 has got the most acres. That's 189,800. That's assessment, not even an appraisal. So now we have to look at an issue like, wow, that's really already up there for land that I can have sewer and water on. And, the person say that I'd want to sell that lot to, this is something to consider. And then you have that price, and let alone what it would take then to set your home up, and on and on. So the fact that I pay a lot of taxes for those 4 waterfront properties leaves me a little perturbed at the lack of caring from the city over all the years, and just overlooking it because it was convenient, or, oh my goodness, it's going to cost money, so A Street doesn't go in. Well, that means no fire service and ambulance service to those 3 lots. You're going to come across the bay in a boat to pick these people up in their $500,000 lot. I mean, it's not making much sense. So my request is that the city look into these lots and access. And if I am not eligible for water and sewer over there, then I would like to know what can be put in there and adjust my mill rate to reflect the no service situation for your city lots and the taxes being paid for them for a long time now. And so I was totally happy to have my little outhouse pumped out, and I asked the city and they didn't feel like they could accommodate me for an outhouse, which only held 20 gallons. And so now I'd like the city to come up with a solution and what is going to happen for those other lots, because access shouldn't have to come behind my home and interrupt me when you sell to people that maybe you know or whatever, but they have every right to turn around and sell it. And then there you are. You don't know who you're living next to, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't feel like Lot 4 should grant access to those lots. I think the city needs to come up with some kind of plan for the A street or whatever else is going on. I know it's bad time and I'm laying it on everybody that's new here now. And this has been an ongoing through umpteen governors of this little city over all the years, but it's time to like break this down and find out what am I getting from the city for the property values. So I'm going to rest my case on that, and I will expect some kind of feedback. I had information for the water, et cetera, but I was told that if you do not have access of 200 feet, which by the way, my lot number 4 pumps 200 feet up to the top of the hill. Every other lot is extremely further than 200 feet. So it said I can apply for an exemption, which I don't know what that means, but I could definitely start with the lower mill rate on those. And until we can come up with some kind of game plan to get me access to city lots, or maybe you'd like to annex them out, then I wouldn't feel so badly about them having to come by water to reach their properties. So I don't want to carry on and on and on and stuff like that, but this is my request to the city and the council here is to tell me what it can have, septic, outhouses, whatever, on those properties down there. And if I have to be off the grid, then I think that it would be nice to have something from the city to indicate that I'm off the grid down there, and I can take it to the assessors in the borough and relay that information to them, so I don't look like there's can be a mansion on every lot down there, which it would end up being extremely expensive. However, if you look at it, to build, to get any material there, they're not providing any access for, like I said, fire emergency, so that should be dealt with. And I believe I have every right to sell those lots or anything. And so in order to not be, like I said, cut off at the knees, I'd appreciate some input and let me know what I can do or how we're going to adjust this and make it right, or whatever situation the city has to take. I know we're not in a good space, but anymore, I really can't help that. I mean, I'm not the source of our low incomes and et cetera. So, but on the other hand, everybody is making pretty good profit off of the taxes that come from those properties. So that's probably all I have to say, and I'd appreciate whatever input and findings that you guys come up with. And like I said, I'd like it to be in writing, et cetera, for the borough to be able to utilize and analyze. So that's about it, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Appreciate that information. And yep, I can reach out with and talk with the city manager as well and the city administration. And yeah, it should be fairly straightforward in code. And then we'll have to take a look at what you've got there and then see what's available. So we can definitely get back to you with the information you're looking for.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, item H, public presentation for items not on the agenda. Anyone from the public wishes to speak under item H?
We have a hand from Ms. Laurel Hiltz.
Okay,
Hi, Mr. Mayor, you can hear me okay?
yeah, I got you, Laurel. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just want to, from a Chamber of Commerce perspective, just kind of give a quick recap on the last month or so. A big shout out to all of the businesses and the transportation providers and the lodging and the food, the restaurants, the grocery stores, everybody. Obviously, we can see based on just even those second quarter numbers that it was a tremendous summer. We can tell it by the number of people out on the street and the golf carts riding around the corners. And, so a lot of work, a lot of hard work in a very challenging employment reality. The ability to get people to work and work hard is really challenging. So I just want to be super thankful for all of those individuals, those businesses and those agencies that have provided some amazing services. Alaska Coastal Marine bringing in the Rainbow and the Discovery and the Old Sizzler and all these other boats, and the Seldovia Bay Ferry. We'd see 3 vessels in the harbor at a time, plus the state ferry once it started rolling in. And that was an exciting thing. And so just want to celebrate that. What an amazing thing. We had weddings happening. We had music playing on the streets as you'd walk down day and night, and just people hustling to make it amazing. So shout out to everybody. With that, a few things that I noticed. I saw the SOS do their training and out on the water last month, and the SERCAC conference came to town and used the Seldovia Conference Center at the tribe and got to have that meeting. And living at the end of the airport, I saw countless helicopters this summer coming in for medevacs, which that would be a very interesting statistic to compare how many medevacs we're getting on an average, a monthly average now, and compare that to previous years, because it sure feels like it's increasing to me. And then, which gives you that great opportunity to fundraise, and celebrate what it is that our volunteer fire and EMS does in the community. The school's kicked off. It's summer, it's school year, and there was a great community event last week, the open house there, plus the Seldovia preschool is getting ready to launch here quickly. They're just waiting on a few pieces of paperwork, and then those kids will be able to attend the preschool. And the SOC is just kicked it into high gear, and the tribe, has put on a number of events throughout the summer and is looking at now the fall and winter season and planning those types of things. So just really thankful for all of that and how people come together in the community to make those things amazing. Now, as we're heading into the fall and winter months, as a walker, a full-time walker, I just want to bring forward that it would be fabulous if it's not already on the list, to please have the count or the assessment done as quickly as possible for the streetlights that are out throughout town, because as a walker, I'll just tell you, it gets pretty dark pretty fast. But if we got that list to HEA sooner than later, it takes them a good long time to get over and get those done. And if they were here a month from now, a month and a half from now, we're at the end of October, Halloween, trick or treat, and people going around places where it's super dark. And that's definitely a safety issue. So right now there's a light out on Fulmore, between Fulmore and between SVT and Seldovia House. And there's a light out at the corner of Kachemak and Shoreline. Those are 2 that I've noticed most recently. So, and then on a note regarding what Susu had to say about trees, Ron Turner said, trim the sails. So if you trim your trees up, the bottom third, then they'll remove a fair amount of the sail and make those trees safer, less likely to suffer from extreme winds. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Laurel. Appreciate that information. Okay, anyone else from the public tonight, Radzi?
I don't
Mr.
see any
Mayor,
other hands at this time.
I neglected
Yep.
one thing, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Laurel.
The Seldovia Chamber of Commerce September meeting will be this Thursday night, and at that meeting, we're going to recognize Darlene Crawford. She is stepping down as the treasurer, the secretary and treasurer of the Chamber of Commerce, and we won't even try to guess at how many years she's been the treasurer, but we're just really thankful for her service, and I would encourage the city council to look into drafting a resolution to recognize her for that service. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Laurel. Appreciate you bringing that up as well. Yeah, I know Darlene's been, has held that position for a long, long time. So, as well as a number of other positions within the community. So appreciate you bringing that back up. Okay, Radzi, I think you said no one else from the public.
I don't see any hands at this time.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll go into item I, committee and advisory board reports. I don't see any listed here. And then item J, administrative reports.
Hey, Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
We have a Mr. Walt Sonnen with, I'm assuming either CIRCAC or SOS.
Oh, okay. If Walt's there, yep, you bet.
Yeah, good evening, Walt Sonnen here. I have a couple of things to report. Last Friday, there was a Cook Inlet RCAC meeting here in town. This was a meeting that we had been trying to have. I think it was, we had 4 strikes against us, and we finally had a meeting due to COVID and weather and water shortage. 2 strikes to COVID. So the meeting was at the conference center down the street. Mr. Mayor gave a nice welcome to folks in town, and we proceeded with the meeting. It was a meeting that was sort of rudimentary, I guess. The interesting thing for me in the meeting was the Hillcorp presented with a fellow who has been very active in exploring hydropower from the tides. And they are considering using several, there are 4 abandoned platforms of the 14 or 15 that are out there in the inlet. And these will be plugged and are discontinued from service, and it is thought that this might be a good place to hang a generator, and it's right in the preliminary stages. No one's ever done it before. This, of course, Cook Inlet has probably got more power from the tides than any other place like it in the United States, and so this is a good place to look into it. And they hope, Hillcorp hopes to explore this further and get maybe some input from the universities and maybe some money from the government and whatnot to further this exploration. And anyway, he went into it quite a bit. Very interesting to me. The other presenters were Marathon Shipping. They run all the big boats around here hauling oil, and the presenter, and I've heard this fellow speak before. He's the boss. He's the boss, and he emphasized safety, and that's how they run their organization, which is very good for us to hear. The third presenter was Captain Leanne Lusk, and she is the port captain for the Coast Guard of the Western Sector, which includes all the way out to the Aleutian Islands. And she basically listed all of the marine incidents, which include accidents and sinkings over the last year or so. It was really good to get those people in town, get them looking around, let them see what Seldovia looks like. We've had a number of new board members since the last meeting, and it was good to finally get those folks here. I encouraged them in my closing comments that they might spend more time here because of the individuals that I spoke to. They all like Seldovia. and they wish they had more time to spend here. And I encourage perhaps the next meeting, we're on a three-year cycle. And this third meeting we share with Homer, Kodiak, and the third one comes to Seldovia, that perhaps if they could plan on spending an extra morning or some time here, that that it would be beneficial to the and enjoyable for the members of the board and the organization. Putting on my different hat, I am the president of the SOS Response Organization. Friday, several weeks ago, we had an exercise at the mouth of the harbor. This exercise was different than any other exercise that we've done that I've been involved with, because it didn't involve any CISPRI equipment. CISPRI, again, is the umbrella organization which pretty much in charge of oil spill response in the whole inlet. So we did this with the DEC equipment alone. We did not use any CISPRI equipment. We have 2 Connexes down the street that have nothing but DEC equipment in them. And so we used, their anchors, their buoys, their lines, and their boom. Was an interesting exercise, one that I had wanted to do for some time. It was across the mouth of the harbor, the entry to the harbor. And the GRS exercise calls for a gate so that we can let boats pass. It just happened to be, or I kind of designed it to be on a very low tide. It was a 12-foot tide coming off of 4+. So there wasn't much current, which allowed us to make a few mistakes and recover without chasing the boom all over. We didn't find any solutions, but we found a couple of things that we could do to form the gate, if you will, to let boats in and out. And we had talked with the operators of the Discovery Rainbow and the Fast Ferry prior. So it was on a Sunday, and they were hep to what we were doing. But that was an interesting exercise. We had 6 responders, and one thing about an exercise, you can't make a mistake. You learn. But it was a successful exercise, and we cleaned up and we're done. Questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
how many people do you have with SOS? How many local members do you have with the SOS?
Well, we have 12 or 14 people on the roster who have completed their hazmat qualifications and are current with their qualifications. We don't have a membership per se, but if you've got your hazmat and you're talking to us, you're a member. And we have to draw from that group of people for our exercises, because you have to be hazmat qualified to participate.
Right, thank you. And the wind generation, is that something that's just being briefly talked about that Hill Corps is actually thinking about doing? The projection of time frame of actually putting in Cook Inlet on the old drill rigs. Exciting.
It's way out. It's
Oh.
way out. No one has ever done it.
20,
he mentioned that wind and solar are probably 20 years ahead of this.
Oh, the
So
title.
in order to, not to say it would take 20 years, but that was a comparison that he made. This is in its initial stages. And they're surveying the inlet of these 4 platforms, how much tide there is on the incoming and outgoing, and what's better. Would it be too strong if the platform that has the strongest tide, would it carry something away? I mean, there are just lots of ramifications apparently for this, and they consider the silt in the inlet as a deterrent, a problem that nobody's ever faced before, and that kind of thing.
Well, thank you, Walt. You always do a good job on letting us know what's happening. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Anyone else for Walt?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep,
So,
go
yeah,
ahead, Bobby.
I'm sorry I had to miss that. I wanted to go to that because I find that really interesting. Do you have any other reading material on that? With the on the platforms and the,
No, I don't.
no?
No,
Okay,
there was
Yeah.
nothing that was presented to us on that.
yeah. Yeah, I was stuck in the laundry, so I couldn't make it, but I find that really interesting.
Yeah, it's out there. We'll just have to follow it along and see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, and thanks for your report.
Thank you.
It's great. Thanks.
Yeah, Walt, I believe the Brits have been doing this for about 40 years. That Portsmouth, England is got very similar tides to us, about a 25, 30-foot tide there. And they're making electricity with tidal power there. They have a
Where is that?
Portsmouth, England.
Oh. Okay. All right, we'll have to tell them.
So it's, yeah, there's stuff around. You can Google that and find out quite a bit about how it works and stuff.
All right, any further questions for Walt? Okay, thank you, Walt. Appreciate the information, and yeah, hopefully we can get them back. It was finally glad to be a success in getting that meeting over here. As you said, we've been trying for yeah, it was the fourth try and finally a success. So that was good. And obviously, I think nice little economic shot around the town too. Fair number of folks in town, a lot of room rentals. So that was good. Appreciate your efforts on making all that happen. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Item J, administrative report, city clerk report on the Alaska Broadband Summit held on August 9th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was able to attend the Broadband Summit put on by Dan Sullivan in Anchorage last month and provided a memorandum in your packet just as an overview of that summit. And it was, I won't read the whole thing, but really wanted to reiterate that it was a very inspiring experience. There was a lot of individuals in the room, a lot of, the different stakeholders, and we heard a lot from different tribal entities that were already in the process of implementing broadband connections. We heard mostly from the federal partners with the NITA and other federal divisions at the FCC and their mapping program. And really, it was just meant to bring everybody into one room to ask questions and see how we can be involved and how we can all be a part of the message, which was internet for all, the president's message there, internet for all. And I did write up in that memo, that there's ways for Seldovia to remain involved. Obviously, we are still working with HEA on their project to bring updated power to the community, which would include fiber, but there are other ways that includes, looking at other middle mile grants to see if those are possible. To continue to work with the state, because the state was the first state in the nation to put in their letter of interest for the program, and they created their Office of Broadband while I was up there. Well, it had already been created, but our governor signed it into legislation while I was up there and created the Office of Broadband. So the state is working really hard, and the big part of that is the FCC mapping to show where the unserved and underserved communities are. And unserved communities are communities that have internet access 25 down and 3 up, and underserved are 100 down, 20 up. So just, it's important for the city to keep following along and seeing where opportunities for funding are. And I'm sure that more will be coming forth in the near future.
Excellent. Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, appreciate that. A lot of good information. Appreciate you providing the memo also. Lots of good info. And yeah, we got to stay on top of this one. Obviously, the internet's still a big deal for folks trying to just get by in life these days. It seems like everything you buy is connected, has to be connected to the internet to even work nowadays. So yeah, which is unfortunate, but that's the way the world is going. Any questions from council for the city clerk?
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask a question?
Yeah, you bet. Go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, Heidi, could you fill me in what the unserved and the underserved, is Seldovia considered one of those? And how is that determined?
So the determination is based on the internet service that we have provided to us. And I'm not sure if we are considered, because I do think that there are a few individuals that do have internet service that's higher than the 25 down, 3 up. So that what that means is on your internet connection, if you have a download speed of 25 or lower and an upload speed of 3 or higher, sorry, I'm not clarifying that well. 25 down, 3 up, 25 download, 3 upload speed. If you're that or under, you're underserved. If you have 100 download speed and 25 upload speed, then you're underserved. Sorry, unserved, underserved. That's determined by the FCC mapping program, which they had to have that complete, or they were getting everybody into the mapping program by September 1st. And that mapping was going to be provided. And then the state additionally has to do their own mapping. And those mappings will determine funding. Every state that signs up for the BEAD program gets $100 million in funding to start. And the rest of the program's determination is by those communities that are underserved and unserved. They'll get priority for funding. And really, it was very inspirational to hear people say, this is just like when they brought power into homes, when they brought telephone into homes. This is our generations. That was the message. This is our generation's move to broadband coming into the homes. So they're going to take that determination of our community service. Hopefully everybody did the FCC mapping speed test, and depending on what the individuals of our community have will determine where we are on the priority list to receive funding and have that service provided to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Heidi, for that. Anyone else with questions?
Mr. Mayor, no question. I just want to tell Heidi, thanks for going to that and for all the information that you provided. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Heidi, again. Appreciate that. We'll keep moving here tonight. Item K, public hearing, ordinance 23-03, an ordinance to the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, adopting a recodification of Seldovia Municipal Code to include ordinances enacted during fiscal year 2022 and July of fiscal year 2023 for titles 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 15, and 18. And this was introduced on 8/8/2022. And Heidi, will let you take this one away.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, thank you. So this is on page 14 of your packet, and it's a simple housekeeping measure that we do annually to recodify all the ordinances passed in the previous fiscal year into the Seldovia Municipal Code Book. I think all council members should have already received those updated code pages for their book. Mr. Mayor, yours might still be at the office. We'll have to check on that, as well as the books for the public at the office and they're in council chambers. And once or if this ordinance is enacted, then those codes that have been recodified will be uploaded onto the website tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up for council discussion. Any questions, comments from council? Okay, I'll just offer a quick comment. Yep, this is, look at this as housekeeping. Should be an annual affair when we do this. Takes and puts everything into a formal resolution for the previous year's work. And pretty straightforward. So everyone should be in support of this. And that's all I have. Okay, anyone from the public wishes to weigh in on ordinance 23-03?
I'm not seeing any hands at this time.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. We adopt ordinance 23-03.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to adopt ordinance 23-03 or to approve ordinance 23-03, second by Nathan. Any more discussion before we vote? Okay, all those in favor of approving ordinance 23-03, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion is passed to approve ordinance 23-03 with a vote of 6 in the affirmative. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Item L, unfinished business, none. Item M, new business. Item M1, resolution 23-05. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia approving the Second Amendment to the Cook Inlet Spill Prevention and Response Incorporated Property Lease Agreement and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute the appropriate documents. Rachel, I'll go ahead and let you summarize. And
Thanks, Mayor.
found on page 15. Yep, go ahead.
All right, so back in July, the city council gave the thumbs up to proceed with the disposal of the lot adjacent to the Sisbury building, because since 2017, the city's had that open for lease or sale and hadn't had any bites. And we're looking for ways to close the deficit in the general fund. And so upon receiving a survey, it was actually determined that the Sisbury improvements were in that lot, despite the lease agreement only reflecting that one lot was impacted. And so at the July 25th meeting, council said, hey, can you work with Sisbury to figure out a resolve that works for both organizations to keep the relationship positive and moving forward? So in talking with Todd Paxton, who's the general manager, we came up with the terms that are in the Second Amendment for council's consideration. So the Second Amendment amends the lease to reflect that both city parcels are impacted. Those two numbers that end in 906 and 907. It also includes the tidelands of those parcels available for lease, as well as a portion of parcel 908, which is leased by Sisbury. That's the boat haul out, the fencing that extends into the boat haul out yard. And this amendment also extends the lease term from May 15th of 2023, or sorry, that should say May 15th, 2032 to December 31st, 2032. It also removes the rental rate escalation clause and increases the annual rental amount, which is the base rent, to $15,000 a year. So if you go ahead and look at page 18 of your packet, and actually I can share the screen really quick. This is now the new lease agreement. So before the lease, it showed the outline of this parcel here, and it described this parcel as a 20,000 square foot lot area. but in reality, it was impacting both of these lots here. So now we have the new footprint of the lease updated. And then here's a comparison on page 29 in your packet that shows what the current annual lease payment would be with that escalation versus what CISPRI proposed, which was a flat annual rate of $15,000 a year. And so starting in, I believe it's, starting in September of this year, the rate will change to the higher amount. And so over the course of this fiscal year through the end of 2032, the city will have an increase in revenue of over $63,000 as a result of the flat rate proposal by CISPRI. So I know there was interest in the council in seeing the disposal of that lot. However, I see that as a compromise. It's essentially doubling or close to doubling the rental rate. And then council can decide in 2032, is that still the best interest for the community of the waterfront, and work with CISPRI closer to that date. So it gives another basically 10 years, over 10 years to figure out if the city's still interested in seeing the disposal of that lot or the continued use by CISPRI. But Todd Paxton wrote a very, amicable letter on page 30 in your packet, and ended his letter with thanks again for your willingness to help us land on a solution. So that, I feel like this met council's intent. It reflects the land that's actually encumbered by the improvements, and still it puts us in a better position than where we were at before. So I look forward to the discussion, and thanks for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel, for that overview. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead and open it up to council for any questions or comments on resolution 23-05.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
can that we basically cut that lot in half, the part that was being encroached on, that lot is split kind of down the middle. Is that correct?
I think through the mayor, Councilmember Nathan, it was more than half.
Okay,
And I can pull up the survey.
that's all right. It doesn't make any difference. I just stopped getting in my mind what we're talking about. Is it possible to replat the remainders of that lot to say attach it to what's next to it, which would be the value added building in it?
I do think it's possible. I think though that it's not a significant amount of property. I'm trying to find, here it is. Let me pull this up because maybe that'll help. And actually, let me open this document.
Well, all I was thinking is that little sliver is worthless basically, but if it were attached to the lot next to it, it would enhance the value of that. So
Here, this, let me show you here. So initially, we thought they were just on this lot. I don't know if you can see where the mouse is at.
Yep.
So initially we thought it was just this lot, and then upon doing the survey, it actually takes up more than half of that other lot. So and there's that fence, so, and a riprap slope for, I don't know if that's connected to the floating ramp, so it wouldn't be in the city's best interest per se, like it'd be a very minimal amount of property to do like a lot line adjustment or something for. If you look right where the mouse is, that's the little strip of property, but basically they're fully on both of those lots.
okay, so what's the advantage of not splitting that off and adding it on to the lot next to it? There's nothing left. All right. Fine. Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
It looks like it was a good compromise and we've doubled what we were getting. But I do have a question in the original, not the original, the amended July 2019 lease renewal agreement. If you could just let me know, have they fulfilled all the, CISPRI has fulfilled all of the on page 25 about the, all of those bullet points, have those been, do you know if those are all done? Have they held?
In the or actually not the resolution, it's in the amendment. The amendment on page 17 ends with the lines, additionally, both parties acknowledge the conditions and stipulations regarding the lessee's use of the boat wash done facility have been satisfactorily completed and upheld thus far.
Okay. So everything that's in bullet point should have been done, ADA compliant, blah, 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 all of that stuff. Okay.
I mean, I didn't oversee the project, but
Right. It's documented.
well, Todd Paxton put that stipulation in there and he knows the amendment. So I just trust that that it happened.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else with questions or comments on the lease amendment? Yeah, I'll just offer a quick comment. Yeah, I think this, given the circumstances, obviously, one lesson learned from this is that, I mean, anytime, and we've talked about this before, and this usually seems to be the issue of all property disputes and issues in Seldovia, is the failure to get a survey prior to doing business or the start of construction. I think about 99% of the time, that's where we get in trouble and or residents get in trouble. So that was good that we did that. Obviously, looking at the map there, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think I don't think it makes a lot of sense to try to carve out that little sliver. I don't know if it's 10 feet or, you know, what it is there. I mean, if I was CISPRI, I'd probably extend that fence line over to the property line myself, and then they'd have some additional lay down inside of their lot. But I think on the value, I mean, basically, we're giving them an extra 6 months on the lease, and we've almost doubled our lease rate. So I think it's a pretty amicable solution. It starts as clean with the terms and the way the amendment's written. And yet I had also talked with a few constituents around town too that were not real happy with our last action of choosing to dispose of that property. So I think this will definitely go a long way to help a few folks with that idea that the city should retain their waterfront property rather than sell it. So yeah, I think all in all, I think what we've got here is a pretty good piece of work, and I'm definitely in support of it. So anyone else before we go to public? Okay.
Mayor, I just have one comment to Rachel. I appreciate the effort there because it's a win-win for us. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the public care to weigh in on ordinance 23-05?
I don't see any other hands at this time.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action on resolution 23-05.
I'll make a motion that we accept resolution 23-05.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to accept resolution 23-05 with a second by Sweat. Any further discussion on the amendment before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on approval of resolution 23-05. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Resolution 23-05 is approved with a vote of 6-0. Item M2, discussion, City of Seldovia General Liability Insurance and Special Events Coverage. And we'll go ahead and let staff take the lead on this.
Thank you, Mayor. So this discussion was inspired by a June 13th council meeting in which council had questions regarding the ordinance that formed the Arts Council, as well as insurance requirements for other organizations having special events within the city. And so just to give some background, Ordinance 84-19, which is available on page 35 in your packet, that established the Arts Council as a city organization. But then it goes on further to state in the ordinance that the Arts Council shall hold the city harmless for any debts incurred by the Arts Council. So the city has interpreted that to mean general liability coverage or insurance. And for events that the city isn't a co-sponsor of, it's required the Arts Council to have separate insurance coverage, but essentially that's the city insuring the city based on the formation of the ordinance. So our current insurance has general liability coverage with AMLJIA. It's a $5 million coverage as well as public officials liability. And that liability coverage covers basically appointed officials not upholding their roles or responsibilities appropriately and helps protect the city. So if the Arts Council did something that compromised the city, our insurance coverage already is there because you're volunteers or directors on behalf of the city. So I spoke with our city attorney and he gave me some good insight to just check in with how the borough works with the borough school district, because they're, you know, the school district is of the borough, but it's a separate organization. And so they fall underneath a single entity, which helps operationally as well as financially, them working together. And so in terms of the Arts Council, and I did ask the city attorney to review this, and he approved this memo as to form that the Arts Council is no longer required to provide separate insurance coverage for events because they are a city organization. And so I'd recommend that council consider updating the language found in that ordinance to read that the Arts Council, acting on behalf of the city, shall minimize all risks and liabilities associated with its operations and activities, and receives coverage under the city's general liability and public officials liability coverage when in effect. So that way we're truly showing and not having our own city organization provide additional coverage when it's already there. Now, when it comes to other organizations, though, it's very different. So the Arts Council is an organization that was created and formed by the city, but organizations like the Seldovia Chamber of Commerce and the Seldovia Oil Spill Response Team aren't. So it is a best management practice if you're allowing organizations to use public property to carry separate insurance, because if they have an event, let's say a fish toss, and the fish breaks somebody's finger, they have coverage that protects them and the city if something like that were to escalate. So it is in the best interest to require those organizations to sign a hold harmless agreement, as well as maintain their own insurance that holds the city as a certificate holder or additional insured. So the Homer Chamber of Commerce does this. They have their own insurance. They insure their own events. They'll extend their coverage or work with the city to get a specific rider according to their executive director to be on their policy. When the Homer Chamber of Commerce had a food truck event, they required all of their vendors to have separate insurance. So it is of the city's best interest to still require separate organizations to have a separate policy. Now, there's a few different ways they can do this. So they can request their insurance, list the city as additional insured. The city could extend its insurance to that organization. But again, that's not a recommended practice because it's essentially giving all of the city's coverage to an organization that the city has no administrative control over. Or you can require that organization to purchase special event insurance through the city. So for example, with the Arts Council, when they had their Jackaloff 10-mile run. This was back before they were required to hold the city harmless. They bought a $150 policy for a one-day event for a run. And so the city could require groups to do that. I'm not sure how it would work for a organization or a single individual. Like if an individual wanted to form an event, when I worked at the city of Homer and oversaw their special events, we would ask them to find a sponsoring organization that was formed to work with them to host the event. And then their insurance would be what they would provide the city to host the event. So those are just some recommendations for the council's consideration. And there's some emails, the ordinance, and the indemnification agreement. This meeting was supposed to be in August, but we delayed it for our risk specialist with our insurance company to attend, but I do not see her on here. So I did not send her a reminder email, so I'm sorry about that, but I hope all of this information shows how the city manages risk and how we want to encourage special events to occur, but we want to do it safely so that they can continue without fireworks going off, so to say, in the wrong way. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and open it up to council for questions or comments.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Well, the Art Council will be very happy to get this information. And we're talking about rewriting the ordinance 84-19, so that's perfect. I have another question. How does the SURSA and SOC fit into this?
So with the SURSA and SOC, part of the agreement with the borough so that the SOC could operate was that they would be on the city's insurance. And the employees are city employees, so their workman's comp is covered by our insurance. And then they contribute whatever our insurance company says is their portion of our policy, then they remit that amount to the city.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. Anyone else? Questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
So when the event takes place at the school that the Arts Council sponsors, who is responsible for that if they have an accident, somebody flying off the bleachers or something? Is it the school? Or is it our insurance?
So this is where I wish our risk specialist was here, because if there's a lawsuit, someone can file multiple organizations or put multiple organizations on a claim. So if it's the Arts Council is the city, and we actually already have a specific policy that says any events held at the Susan B. English School are covered. But if the Arts Council holds an event at the school, that's technically the city, so they're on our policy. And then by the school allowing the event to happen there, if something did happen, I'm sure someone would pursue the school. And then any other factors, like if an individual was involved or something like that, then I'm assuming the claim would have their name too.
So it's basically doubly insured, kind of, sort of, at the school for that particular event.
Yes, because the borough has their own insurance and the city has our own insurance. So yeah,
Thanks.
you bet.
Thank you, Bobby. Anyone else? Okay, we can go ahead and see if anyone from the public wishes to weigh in on the discussion regarding the general liability insurance and special events coverage.
Ms. Laurel Hiltz would like to speak.
Okay. You're on mute, Laurel, so you can hear me.
Thank you. I switched from office to home, and so I did miss a bit of the conversation, but I read ahead. And so I think that, gosh, some years back, the chamber began to take a look at at liability around events. And it's actually led to the city having that closer look as well, because we understood that when you have chainsaw carving going on, or different things that are happening on city properties or other private individuals, entities, or agencies properties, that there's risk involved. And so, but I know for sure this, the long relationship between the city and the chamber has been that that those events were covered under the city. And I think, in fact, it was something that was researched and found not to be detrimental to the city. But when a chamber event takes place on the state road, I think that the city doesn't hold that liability. I could be wrong. But I think it just creates a situation where if it's affordable and not painful, then folks, finding insurance is something that we want to help them do and champion. But if it's not reasonable or manageable, then I think you'll find things moving in location again. And so just always want to caution that, because it's a symbiotic relationship. So chamber benefits the city and benefits the businesses. And so, if we make it unsustainable, then that impacts everybody. The other thing is just a note that any agency, government or private or individual, who is using the school's buildings, which are owned by the borough, you have to submit a building use request form. And with that, you have to provide proof of insurance. So I would counter that most likely the Arts Council is providing the city's insurance information to the borough for the use of that facility. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Laurel.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead,
If I
Heidi.
could just respond to that real quickly, I would just reiterate that yes, the city does provide their insurance form to the school specifically for the Arts Council to be able to hold events on the school. We also we provide a form specifically to DOT for SVT to hold a parade on state highway, and for the chamber to hold events on the street for the 4th of July events. So that is I just wanted, since that was pointed out, just to make sure that that's clarified, that the city does ensure the state does require permitting for any events happening on state highway. And the city does ensure the 4th of July events and does the permitting for that. But for like the not Salmon Shuffle, we do that one for the Arts Council. But for like the Jack Loft Bay 10 miler, the Arts Council was doing their own permitting for that. I think that would fall back under the city now. But any other event that is going to be held on state highway does require a state highway permit and insurance.
Okay, thank you, Heidi, for clarifying that. Appreciate that. Okay, anyone else from the public wishes to weigh in on this?
I do not see any other hands at this time.
All right, I'm going to bring it back. This was a discussion on this. Any other final closing comments or questions for the manager? Okay, Rachel, what do you envision then on the rewrite of 8419?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to use the language that's under that recommendation section
Okay,
and leave it at that.
okay, and then are you thinking next meeting or a couple meetings down the road?
Yeah, it's pretty minor, so it can be
Okay.
introduced at the next meeting. And I guess and this would be a city clerk question, for a non-code ordinance to amend it, does that require an ordinance or can it be a resolution?
I believe that would still follow the 2 hearing policy to amend a non-code ordinance, but we can double check that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thanks everyone for the questions and answers. Rachel, thank you guys for putting that together and getting that straight. I think that's probably a win-win for everybody there. No sense in paying twice for the same thing. So appreciate that. All right, we'll move on to item M3. This is resolution 23-06, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia authorizing a sole source procurement of professional services regarding the FY 2022 audit, approving LG Redfield LLC as the city auditor and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute the appropriate documents. Rachel, I'll let you take that one.
Thank you, Mayor. So in May of this year, Altman Rogers and Co. Ceased being the city auditor. And given that the city has a variety of time-sensitive needs for the audit, and because we're required as a first-class city to have an annual audit in order to receive community assistance program funds, this is a pretty important service to secure. And so we contacted communities for recommendations, as well as multiple, like over 10 accounting firms in Alaska, as well as Oregon and Washington for quotes. And this was the only firm that submitted a quote for the city's consideration. They're based out of Juneau. And so there are a variety of procurement sections of code that allow the city to enter into a sole source agreement. And so one of them being that this is the only proposal that we received after calling for proposals from other organizations. And so initially we budgeted for our auditing fees $37,200, and this proposal is $14,400 more. I will add with the caveat that in the past, our auditing fees have exceeded that $37,000 amount because our records haven't been ready. And so while it does seem like a higher amount, I think that it still falls within the realm of reason of what we've spent on our auditing fees in the past. And so their proposal is attached. They're able to meet the deadlines in order to accomplish the audit and get the community assistance funds. So they're going to perform work the beginning of 2023, and the final audit will be ready by mid-April, which still aligns with our budget practices of ensuring that our audited actuals are always reflected in our budget. So we'll still be able to make that deadline too. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Okay, we'll go and take it over to council for any questions or comments.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Well, it looks like they were our only firm to submit a proposal. Is that right? So it looks like we have one way to go, and that's going with them. At least we have one person or one outfit that came forward, so we can move. And it seems like reading over their information, it's nothing different than what we've had before. And the only thing about the 49,000, if we always went over before in from the 35 or 37, we can probably assume that we're going to go over for things that we're not prepared for again. But we'll just have to budget for it. But thank you for getting this together. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Anyone else?
Well, and Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
To add to that too, Councilmember Rojas, there are firms that were interested, but they just don't have capacity because all of the ARPA and COVID money is requiring a substantially more amount of time. And so there's either auditing firms that have just said, no, we're already at capacity. No, we're only pursuing COVID funds. No, we're no longer doing municipalities anymore. So we did try to vet out every single option, including other states. And so a cost savings measure to the city would be that the city could move from first class to second class, in which case the city would only have to provide the state with a council certified financial statement. But I still think it's in the city's best interest, as long as it's affordable, to continue having an audit, because there's differences between the budget and audited actuals. But that is a cost savings measure in the future that if the city needed to, it could consider. You bet.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Mayor,
Rachel. Yep, go ahead.
this is like a 50% increase. That's almost 40%. Do we get anything more with this new firm? How long is this agreement in place? Is this a multi-year agreement or?
Through the mayor, it's an annual agreement. And because it's the first year, because we're a new client, they're budgeting for more because they're going to have to do more work to take us on. And then I'm hoping that the fee would decrease because they wouldn't have to be learning all of our files, consulting with our former auditor. So it's a heavier lift to take on a new client, but then we'll be more efficient every year thereafter. But it's an annual agreement.
Yeah, it seems like the last guy said that it'd be less work for them every year, and they still charge us more. Can we get out of this agreement sometime in the middle of it?
Through the mayor, I don't know.
Yeah. This just seems like we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. Maybe when the situation gets better as far as COVID and the rest of the stuff that's supposedly causing this, maybe we can find somebody else. Is that
Right.
all
So
right?
this is your audit for FY 2022, but then the city next year could issue or call for more proposals for the FY 23 audit and just make sure that they're competitive prices every year. So this is just for FY 22.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, George. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, just a comment. So, yeah, I guess we don't really have any other choice, but it's good to know that there were other people interested in us. I hated to think that nobody wanted us. So, well, that's what I thought until you said that. So, yeah, I mean, nothing's going to there's nothing holding us to these folks after this audit. You know, maybe we could look around next year or whenever we need to see if we can find somebody else that's has a lighter load that maybe, you know, could be a little bit cheaper. But there's certainly nothing we can do about that right now. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Anyone else? Okay, I'll just offer a quick comment. Yeah, I think, I mean, given the situation where we're at, yes, they're a little more expensive. They're obviously, I've read through all their letters, and they obviously have a fairly large resume. They've been in business since 1972, so they're well established. Long time outfit in Southeast Alaska, and obviously have a myriad of clients around the state. So, I mean, obviously it sounds like a good firm. Good choice. You know, being competitive is the only question here. I don't think there's any question of whether or not they can do the work for us, what we need. I don't think that'll be an issue. So, but yeah, well, you never know until you have, you know, two competing bids to see what you get. So, being that it's an annual agreement, I think that it makes sense for us to go ahead and approve this and move forward. So I'd definitely be in support of this. Anyone else from the public that wishes to weigh in on resolution 23-06?
I don't see any hands at this time.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action for resolution 23-06.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we accept resolution 23-06.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to accept resolution 23-06 with a second by Sweat. Is there any more discussion on the sole source procurement for professional services regarding our FY 2022 audit before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the acceptance of resolution 23-06. All those in favor, Sweat.
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 6-0. Resolution 23-06 is approved. Okay, let's see here. move on to M3 or M4. We're moving through stuff quickly here. Item M4, discussion, review of the Jackaloff Bay Dock expression of interest submittals and next steps. And we'll go ahead and let the manager take this.
All right, council. So let me find the minute summary here. Just want to repeat the direction that council gave in April of this year. And then we'll talk about what we've received thus far. So in April of this year, council voted to follow option C, which was the sale or lease of Jackaloff Bay Dock, and to follow those steps as soon as possible that were in the action plan. So it says the city will issue an RFP to lease or sell the Jackaloff Bay Dock as is. If there are no proposals submitted, the city would reevaluate options A, B, and D. And then on the interim, they would be working out of option A, which was status quo, continue with minimal maintenance of the dock, and continue with minimal enforcement. And that the city was working on the raise grant and that they would revisit this matter with an October 1st deadline. So it's September 12th. So if everyone's not at full speed, we can always do this the second meeting in September. But the direction was option C, the sale or lease of Jackaloff Bay Dock. And so to do that for an RFP, we issued an expression of interest, which is simpler. It's easier on an applicant and the city. It's just having any individual or organization submit a letter saying, hey, Soldovia, I'm interested in the dock and this capacity. Here's what I could offer. And that's what we could have used to then base an RFP off of. And we got no proposals received. So no one submitted an expression of interest for the dock. And so council's direction back in April was that if that happened, then the city would explore options A, B, or D. A couple things to point out. The city still has about $156,000 as of this past fiscal year in deferred revenue for the dock. So that is technically money that the city could use to hire a grant writer because the city's attempt at getting grant funds for the dock were unsuccessful this year with raise. So that's one option or something to keep in the back of your mind. The other thing to keep in the back of your mind is the state is now saying, hey, city, you need to do this. If you want to lease those tidelands, we need to start working on it because we gave you an entry authorization to do an appraisal and you already did the appraisal and your entry authorization expired. So now the next step is the lease. And that email from the state is provided on page 68. So they haven't sent me the lease document yet or how much it would be on an annual basis, but we are currently paying an annual fee for the entry authorization, which was acting like a pseudo lease payment, a pseudo lease agreement. By entering into that tidelands lease, then the city would assume responsibility for derelict vessels, sinking vessels, oil spills, you name it, because now we would be assuming management responsibility of that tidelands footprint. So this isn't the uplands, this is what's in the water and the tidelands when the tide is low. So I guess those are the two things to keep in mind. And we'll see what this winter brings in terms of maintenance and storm power and how the dock will hold up. But the engineer in September of last year said we had 3 to 5 years remaining, but most likely less, given the dock's status, which may be a conservative estimate, but the city is exposed to liability because we don't have coverage greater than 27 feet for any boat that ties up there. So keeping those things in mind, how does council want to proceed? Or do you want to say, let's hang tight on this till September 26th? That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. We'll open it up to council for comments and or questions.
Mayor Campbell.
Yep, go ahead, John.
I got a question for the city manager. We have any idea what it would cost us to hire somebody to pursue that grant? I know it's Probably labor and time, huh?
Let's see if other questions come up and I can pull something to get an idea. Hang on
Okay.
1 second.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
I don't see like a date on the letter from Todd Dirks stating when we need to have this. Is the September 26th? Is that the date? And I'm just not seeing it, or?
Through the mayor, he on the phone, at least to me, implied as soon as possible. So they're working on the lease document now. So I'm assuming council will be seeing it by the end of October.
Okay, so we don't have to move on it tonight.
Right,
But as
right.
soon as possible.
Right, so tonight, I'm just looking for council's direction on what options do you want to proceed with? Because option C wasn't successful. And just in the back of your mind, know that we have somewhat of a time limit on the lease for the Tidelands if we want to charge fees for the dock, but that comes with liability. So that's why that was brought up, but no, you can hang tight on that part of the discussion.
Okay, I just wanted to know what the emergency was on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you bet.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Okay, so we're back to square one. And with that being back to square one, we're at that position where we have to discuss about, do we move forward with this dock at all? Do we move forward with Jackaloff? Or do we let it go? We pull everything out and we let Marco come in with his boat that he can drop the front down. People get on and off. Marco has said over and over that he doesn't rely on the dock. So we need to have that discussion again. What's in the best interest for the city of Seldovia? The $156,000 has to be spent on the Jackaloff dock, correct? Some way or form.
Yeah.
So either grant writing to see if there's a chance to get money out there or not. And then whatever money there is also could be done to fix those little things that we were talking about earlier. I'm too bad Layla's not here. That we talked about earlier in the season that could be worked on. But I guess we're back at the same place of deciding between us and what the public has said. Do we want to put forward funds from the residents of Seldovia to provide Jackaloff dock? And so this is, to me, this is a good time to have a little bit of discussion, but definitely put it off for decision as far as we can. And going for that lease, it's just another thing that complicates the whole picture of the big picture. Do we want to go forward with a campground and all of that we had kind of high dreams of, in the fact that somebody else would take it over? We wouldn't run it. That was kind of the idea. So yeah, sadly, we were at the same place and there's not an easy solution. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Mr.
Vivian.
Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to start out saying. It looks like we're kind of right back where we started. Can that what did you say we had 150 some odd $1,000? Can that be used to decommission the dock?
Yes,
It can.
yes,
Okay.
it's for maintenance.
Okay. And we don't know what the status is yet of the other lease. We did apply for that, correct?
Thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember Sweat. That was another thing. In talking with Todd Dirks, and he didn't put this in his email, but he said, like, the words, most certainly, the state is going to grant an extension to the current tenant of the Uplands. They can do yeah, it's not called a renewal. I think it is called an extension, and state statute gives them an additional 2 years. So Seldovia may not know the outcome of that arrangement until November 2024.
And I just remembered, it's totally not on this subject, but I'm just curious, who's been working out there cleaning it up? Because I drove some of my kids out there yesterday. I was like amazed.
I haven't heard of that.
You guys haven't seen it? I mean, it looks like a whole new place. It still has that, summer home in the middle, but there's a lot of the junk from every place it looked really pristine. Of course, there was one skiff and one boat way at the end of the dock. No one else was out there. I mean, I have to say it was absolutely fabulous. It was gorgeous.
Maybe somebody is getting the message.
But somebody's been doing something. That's kind of what I thought, but, well, anyway, I guess we're gonna talk this to death again.
Okay, anyone else? Any thoughts here, how we want to proceed here at the moment?
I have another lease question.
Yep, go ahead, Harmony.
I was just wondering if our lease is specified to the current infrastructure, or if it's possible to pull the dock with it. Just concerned about losing public access to that waterway if we don't pursue the lease. So if going forward in the next month to 6 months, we aren't securing a grant, aren't securing funding to maintain the current infrastructure, could we pursue the lease agreement or the lease that we, the Tideland lease, in order to maintain access until we can afford updated infrastructure, or does it that title lease specifically for piled dock?
Through the mayor, I would have to read the terms again. But I first want to make clear that the community won't lose access to the waterfront because there's that easement from the road.
So the easement will continue to
The
exist
easement will
even if the
continue.
lot, the upland lease is sold off or
Yes.
extended.
Yes.
Okay,
You
so
just wanna
even
have
if the
parking.
city loses access or loses the lease, there will continue to be public access to that waterfront.
Yes, I guess a way of thinking about it is if we don't have this lease in place with the state, then technically that dock is not permitted to be there because it's state tidelands. So when we have that lease in place, then they're like, great, you have a lease for the tidelands, you can have the dock there, you can do maintenance. You have a green light. But right now, technically the state's saying, hey, you're on our tidelands and you don't have permission. So you got that appraisal. Now we're going to work on a lease. And have you start paying a lease rate for it. And then I wanted to share with Councilmember Kennedy really quick. Let's assume this grant takes and it depends on the grant. So the raise grant, that was like a solid 60 hours of my time with like minimal asking other staff. Let's say it takes 150 hours because you have a team of people that are working on it. And let's assume averaging their rates, because their rates vary from $125 an hour down to $61 an hour. I just took the rates of the pure grant writers and got an average wage of $80.67. If I multiply 150 hours by that dollar amount and then add some contingency and contract management fees, I think it could cost 15 to 20,000 for the raise grant. Other grants are more extensive, so they're going to want to see a whole bunch of other things, but the raise grant, I felt like we could apply for it because I had engineers giving me cost estimates. We were only going for planning funds. We weren't going for construction funds. So if that's the city's strategy and you're just getting the permits, you're just getting the cost estimates, you're just getting the designs, I'm putting that at a $15,000 to $20,000 estimate.
Mayor Campbell.
Yep, go ahead, John.
Okay, so we're going to have an answer as to what the lease cost is going to be in the next couple of weeks, right?
Assuming so.
Okay, well, I have the stomach to wait a couple more weeks and see what that cost is. What it's going to cost us. But if my memory serves me right, I stated before that I didn't have much stomach for the city to continue to have liability through another winter with that dock. I've just had too many bad experiences myself down there trying to get freight on and off of it, and it's a huge liability. I'd like to see us pursue the lease and the other lease, both leases, like I've said before. And the one lease, if that's all we have, and I'd like to see us pursue the grant. But I think unfortunately, the dock's gonna have to come out. So I would be in favor of something in the lines of B.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
for the city manager, did the lessee, the current lessee was angling to buy that Uplands part, right? And so what is this extension that he's getting? An extension on the lease that he holds now?
Correct. It's an extension. So that lease, it's a 55-year lease that expires November of this year. And the state is allowed through a non-competitive process due to administrative procedures to extend it by an additional 2 years.
So what is the purchase price of that property?
That's the state's, I forget the exact term that they use for the process, but they're investigating that. And so the city has filed an application to lease. The state did accept it and we did submit payment. So now the state is going to consider simultaneously our application to lease the parcel if that sale falls through. And the current tenant does have a first preference right to release. So then that'll be another interesting scenario to pursue with the state as well.
Well, if we didn't accomplish another thing, at least we got the thing cleaned up. How about that?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I have another question. I don't want to go on and on about this, but so you're saying the state has said what about the Tidelands lease?
So the Tidelands that our dock is on,
Right,
which was the state dock, and then they gave it to the city in 2008.
yeah,
When they transferred the ownership of the dock, they didn't have Tidelands underneath it, and they told the city, in order for you to charge fees, you have to have control of the Tidelands.
right,
So the city paid a $13,000 appraisal fee in 2020 or the beginning of 2021. And the state had given us an entry authorization because technically we shouldn't even be there. That's why it's an entry authorization, because the state's saying you have no technical right to, as a organization, to be here, but we're going to give you permission to do an appraisal. And then once you have that appraisal, then you can enter into a lease with us. And then we're going to give you full permission to use those Tidelands for the given purpose of having a dock. So that's the stage that we're at, is they're now saying, hey, we gave you this entry authorization. You hired an appraiser to come out here. Now let's
Okay.
enter into the lease.
well, so why did the state never tell us that before?
They did a few years ago, back when Todd Larson was city manager.
But we've had the dock longer than that.
Correct. So I don't know the story of how that happened, but we're now working to
Interesting.
correct that.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Mr. Mayor, I have an insurance question.
Sure, go ahead.
So if we assume this Tideland lease you're talking about, then we'll be responsible for oil spills and all that stuff. Does that alter our insurance? Is that going to change that? Or are they under the assumption we're responsible for that already? I'm sure you probably don't have the answer to this, but
Through the mayor, no, it's a great question, Councilmember Swick, because we have separate insurance for our harbor. So we have general liability for our harbor, and then we have a separate policy that costs between $5 or $6 grand a year called the marina liability coverage for the harbor. But no, and I don't know if that is what covers for oil spills. So I can ask our insurance company this, but no marina insurer would insure the Jackaloff Bay dock. So I don't know how that would work with.
oh, that's right. We only have the general out there.
Right, so we're only covered for like pedestrians using the dock or boats 27 feet or under tying up to the dock. And maybe like, I would assume if a car hit the dock, I'm assuming
Right.
we'd have insurance for that too, but there's that vessel length restriction.
Mhm. So we're hoping that if the vessel is 27 feet and under and it leaks some oil, then we're covered.
I think we have to have
Falls back to that same thing.
specific pollution insurance for that. Usually on the insurance policies I see, you've got to have, there's a specific part for pollution and environmental.
I will ask that and I'll get an answer for our next discussion on
Okay.
that.
Okay, thank you.
If I can ask a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
If we pull out the dock and Sylvia no longer is a part of it, that doesn't stop anybody else as Mock or any other water taxi from using that area. They can beach up on that beach as much as they want to. No one's going to tell them differ, correct?
Correct. That's protected in statute,
Yeah.
public
Right.
access. to
So
the
that, so
tideline.
if Sylvia pulls out, we're not saying no to any access. We're not stopping any access. We're just not the responsible party of keeping a dock there and the floats and all of that.
Correct. Or if you pull the dock now, because you're going to work on getting one that is insurable, that is in better quality, then you'll be working on that. And then the city has the Tidelands lease to
for
put a
that.
new dock in there.
Right. So I guess depending on where the community is, where the council is on this, we've got the $150,000 that can make little fixes on that place. And we can go for that raise grant again. I mean, that'd be a miracle to get it. But as you told me, and all of us, what it took Cordova 3 times or something, and then they got it. So if that's the direction we want to go, I mean, we're back at that big question of, does the city of Seldovia want to be a part of the Jackaloff dock anymore? Is it in our best interest? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Yeah, I'll just offer a comment. Yeah, this is where it puts us as a council and a community in a tough position. I mean, I think it's obviously, we all know it's a good thing to have a dock out there. We're in a tough spot because the dock's at the end of its useful life. I mean, I'm definitely more in favor of, I mean, all these are kind of a hybrid and it's all off of one another and it comes down to timing. So even if you do option D, which I think is the best one, which is the replacement method going forward, which would mean that we should move forward with the lease of the Tidelands, get that established and done, and then we've got it. Now, that doesn't say the first steps is the dock will remain in place as is. Now, if it's deemed that, you know, there could be a hybrid off of that, is maybe while we're working on this, if we just absolutely can't stomach the liability, then we remove the dock, but we proceed, you know, we continue to move forward with a replacement, get a grant writer. And I mean, we met with Senator Murkowski. We took her out there. We spent an hour out there, showed her our situation. I mean, we got to keep the pressure on, try to come up with the money. I can envision what that would be out there, you know, like out there with a brand new dock and you know, some solid infrastructure out there. But maybe if that dock was removed, whether it's this year or next year, and the plan was to move forward with a dock replacement, you know, the public, then we would see, you know, you're going to get some public outcry in terms of when that thing gets pulled out of there. There's no doubt about it. But then again, maybe that might be a silver lining as well. And, you know, bring some other groups forward that want to help with fundraisers, et cetera. You know, that it's hard to say, but until we actually take some sort of steps. But I'm definitely in favor of keeping some sort of presence out there. I mean, it would have to make sense. You're not going to build Rome overnight, obviously, but if you had something out there that was significant that you could charge for, cover your costs, and provide a service, that would be good. So.
And Mayor, if I may add to that.
Yep, go ahead.
And I know it's not an easy decision at all. It's just by serving as council members, you take on the fiduciary responsibility of the community. And our community, as of a survey that we did in 2020, had a low to moderate income level of 62.5%. So that means over half the population that took the survey in Seldovia has a low to moderate income index, and our budget and our maintenance of our other facilities is also critical. And so that's the risk or liability that you're weighing. And I had a constituent, a longtime Soldovian, come in my office 2 weeks ago, being adamant that the city should not be the responsible party for the dock based on what it means for all of the members of the city of Soldovia. You know, if something happens, it only impacts the city of Soldovia, and there was concern there. So, it obviously makes sense to have something out there. It's just what you're facing. It is a hard decision. That's not a fun one, but you wouldn't want to be put in another situation that's even more detrimental to the residents of Soldovia.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I mean, I think that sums it up pretty well. It's basically comes down to what kind of appetite we have for risk. That's basically the bottom line. So, and I don't know if we're going to have that solved 100% tonight. It would be nice to see what our costs would be on the lease going forward. But I think if we're going to follow our own timeline here, given where we're at, and we know disposal is going to cost, it's going to cost some money. And we're not going to have a ton of time here, but by the end of the month here, we have to have, if we defer this to the next meeting, we're going to have some sort of decision because we're going to be at a break point here at some point to try to even figure out what we can do. So what's the, let's see here. Let's go. I don't think we've gone to public yet. We haven't gone to public yet. Have we on this?
We have not gone to the public, and we have a talker.
Okay.
That's Jenny. Hey, Jeremiah.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Sorry, I'm back. I guess I had a couple questions for Rachel. The first was in regards to access. If the lease wasn't extended to the city, and you talk about that being easement, is it a right-of-way easement that transfers with the land for all time, or is it an easement that accesses the tidelands? Even though if there was no lease in place, it's still access to the water.
It's an access easement. It's a 40-foot strip access easement. And as you're actually going down into the parking lot, you'll see right before the outhouse a sign that the state put out there saying that there's that 40-foot access easement. And it's tricky for DOT because where the road is that goes to the dock is not where the platted right-of-way is. It's actually where people park in the bushes.
Okay, well, so there's no jeopardizing that access
Right.
depending on anything that we do
Right.
as a city. Okay, the second thing I wanted to say is if you not renew the lease, but if you acquire the lease, I think one of the reasons you haven't gotten any response in regards to an RFP for that space is that there is no lease. There's no right to do anything there. We have this long-standing situation from before when whatever happened that it didn't get covered. I think that acquiring that lease will add value to that lot and maybe open the door for other people to invest and to be a part of that. If that's the council and the city's choosing, I think that securing that lease would be super valuable for a pretty minimal cost. I know you don't have it yet, but it said like $2,300 or something like that, which is minimal for waterfront and certainly valuable to the city for a sublease situation or whatever else. And then the last thing I would say in regards to taking away the actual dock, I don't know what legal obligations there are, but I know there's plenty of people who would love to salvage, who would come to the aid of the city and reduce costs for getting that stuff out of there if they could haul it away. And I don't know what limitations there are, but just hiring someone for $85,000 or whatever to remove it, I think would be a mistake without exploring that. And there was one other thing. When we talked about the appraisal, I thought that was gifted or in kind or something. Did I remember that wrong? As I remember that gentleman talking about it and saying that there was no charge for that.
I don't know what that is. What what you're remembering, but no, it was like over a $13,000 expense that the city did pay for to have an
Okay.
appraisal.
Not
And
asking about the lease the lease appraisal. She's asking about the insurance appraisal that we had, the dock appraisal. Right?
I don't remember. I just remember it had to do with the dock and it was an expensive appraisal and he did it for gratis. That's just what I remember. So maybe I
Okay.
remember
Oh,
that.
that's the
incorrectly.
condition, the
condition
condition
assess-
survey. Yeah, the condition
Yes.
assessment.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, that's
okay,
all.
because when you
Thank
said appraisal, I was like, nope, we definitely paid for that.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that. Anyone else from the public that wishes to weigh in on the Jackaloff Bay dock discussion?
No, I just have a comment. Yeah, thanks for that, Jenny, but we've already thought of all those things. So, but thanks for reiterating all that.
I don't see any other hands.
Okay, thank you, Razi. Okay, anyone else, council, bring it back, what do we want to do here?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep,
if I may.
go ahead, Vivian.
Well, I think at this point, we need to bring it back for our next meeting, have a discussion. What is our time frame that we're working towards the guy? I mean, if we're going to go for the lease, if we're going to go for that, there's a time frame on that, correct?
So council passed a motion that said by October 1st, if option C wasn't viable, that you would have this discussion on what the next step would be.
So I say at this point, Mr. Mayor, that we put it back on the table again for discussion at our next meeting and see where we're at. And then we get a few answers that you were going to look for.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more. So are our hands kind of tied here anyway? They're writing up this lease. If we don't sign it, we're not supposed to be there. The second we don't sign it, we have to pull that out. Because that's just our junk in the state waters. Is that how that's going to go down?
That's pretty much what it sounds like.
So we don't really have an option.
I don't know how to diplomatically ask that question yet, but I can think about it because it's been there without the lease.
Right. But
And
now
it's-
somebody's paying attention.
Right. And it's gotten more attention because of the uplands. And the governor's aware of it. The commissioner of DOT is aware of it. Senator Murkowski's aware of it. So
Would it turn? Never mind. Never mind. Yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
Mayor
I guess
Campbell,
I could ask the question, Councilmember Swick, if the city did not want to enter into an lease agreement at this time, what would happen?
awesome.
Time to go home, man. I'm still there. You got battery.
Let's see, did you guys just lose power?
There's no
We
sound.
lost power, but we
We're
are
back.
on battery backup
Oh, wow, okay.
and it just came back on.
Mayor Campbell.
Yep, go ahead.
Hey, I guess I'd like to see how much that lease is going to cost us, and I think we should pursue that. And then I think the dock needs to come out, and maybe Jeremiah's right. Maybe that'll build some momentum for us to build some funds to get that dock replaced. And if it don't, it don't. But we still have access to and the community still has access to the lease. So
Yeah, and it might, like we talked about, it might take some time. Yeah, again, it all
And
comes
I-
down to measured risk, where we want to be, what we're willing to accept. And then,
And I have another comment on Mrs. Swick's comment on the cars being moved out there. I was out there a couple weeks ago and I thought there was a lot less derelict cars there. Although the trailer with the Star Views is still there. But it seemed like there was more vehicles there that that had been active. And then I know there was some vehicles across the way that were moved as well. So maybe somebody's working on cleaning that up. That's cool.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, just one more quick comment. So I thought it was, we discussed this obviously a while back, that if we decided to pull the dock, thinking of the future, we were still going to try to get the leases on several of those leases regardless of if we pulled the dock or not. Isn't that correct? Because we were looking at the bigger picture somewhere down the road. So, and I think we should still do that. I mean, I don't know if we'll get the Uplands lease. That doesn't sound very promising, but certainly we need to get the other lease. Because if we end up replacing that dock or getting a grant or whatever, we've got to have that lease for sure. So thanks.
Okay, so listening to the discussion tonight, it sounds like there's definitely some interest in pursuing the Tidelands lease. It's kind of unknown right now about the Uplands lease, and it's up in the air on what we want to do with the dock. We also agree that we should bring it back at the next meeting to discuss it. And hopefully we'll have a few answers from DNR on the final lease rates. And then not to say at that meeting, we've got the same things. We've got status quo as an option. We've got remove it. Basically, those are our couple choices with the actual dock infrastructure itself, and then decide how we want to proceed with pursuing the lease. So I think we've beat this one up enough tonight. Rachel, can we just put it on the docket for next meeting, and then we will do it again.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's see. We got one last item tonight before the manager's report, and that is the petition, item M5, the petition for alteration to a platted utility easement, Watson 2022, and go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a petition to vacate a utility easement, an HEA utility easement for the Seldovia Townsite East Edition, and a staff report with recommended findings is included for council's consideration. This was an item that was supposed to be on the Planning Commission meeting last week, but the commission meeting was canceled from lack of quorum. So the petitions are supposed to have 30-day review period per our code. And with that short timeline, we're actually a little bit past that 30 days. We quickly amended the agenda and put it on tonight's meeting for council's discussion and recommendation to borough either an approval or opposition of this vacation. And the memo, like I said, it has the findings, and it's really important for planning commissions and bodies when reviewing planning decisions and making recommendations or approvals that findings are attached and included. The court has dismissed cases or can dismiss cases of these kinds of situations if there isn't a finding attached of why they have been approved or opposed. So just keeping that in mind, that what's written there is to help provide backing for whatever decision that the council makes. HEA did provide a comment in support of the vacation. And I'm just pulling up my notes here real quick on it. So as stated, it is in the findings, the request to vacate is for utility easement established in 1965 by the Homer Electric Association. The petitioner states that the reason for the alteration is the easement is not in use. The petitioner is the property owner of both properties in question, so this easement affects two properties. And HEA provided the following comment: in agreement to the vacation of the 20-foot wide easement per SL 2007-3 SL. This line has been removed and the platted easement is not required at this time. HEA agrees to the vacation of the 20-foot wide easement per SL 27-3 SL. Per the property owner and the utility, the easement is no longer in use nor required. And without a requirement or use of the utility easement, it may be considered unnecessary. That last part is included because in our code, it says pursuant to 1877.010 intent, the purpose of the chapter is to provide a means of evaluating the public necessity for public rights of way in other public areas and to establish a vacation procedures for the transfer of unnecessary rights of way and other public areas to adjoining properties. And yes, I know this is a utility easement. It's not necessarily a public area or right of way, but it does follow the same process. So recommendation was staff recommends the planning commission review the petition to vacate the 20-foot wide utility easement per SL 2007-3 SL and make recommendations for approval of the vacation of the utility to the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Department per the findings of fact. And then, so if you gather from that, this will go to the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Department and they will have the final say on the vacation of this easement.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up to, obviously, the planning department was not able to consider this, so this now falls in council's purview to meet the intended or required deadlines. And so we'll go ahead and open it up to council for any questions or comments.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
is this going to cost us anything?
I can respond to that, Mr. Mayor. It
Yep.
will not.
It what?
It will not. It's
Okay.
the cost is on the petitioner and who has her surveyor, and the surveyor provided the documents to the city. So that cost goes to the petitioner.
And the staff is recommending that we approve this. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. From the review process, there didn't seem to be any reason to support holding it, but that's up to you guys to review.
I'd be in favor of approving it.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
I'm in favor of approving it.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor? Yep, Mr. Mayor.
yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I think that Ms. Watson has done a good job getting all of her ducks lined up. And it looks like HEA saying that there's no reason for it to be there, that she already has power, obviously. So I'm totally in favor of moving forward with this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Vivian. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'm in agreement also. I think looking at this, it's clear that HEA is on board as well, and that's the primary utility for this easement. And the fact that the landowner owns both of those lots and is being currently served. So, yep, I'm on board. Anyone else before we go to public? Okay, anyone else from the public like to weigh in on the petition for alteration to the platted utility easement?
I don't see any hands at this time.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council for final action.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Heidi.
If the council wants to make a motion to approve the petition for alteration to the platted utility easement for Watson 2022, if you guys could include in that motion to attach the findings as stated in the staff report, then I can provide that to the borough.
Okay. Sounds good.
How would it
All
work
right.
if I said, consider it to be so moved?
We can go with that.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by, let's see. Motion by Nathan to approve the petition for alteration to the platted utility easement for Watson 2022 and to attach the findings that were included in the staff report. And we have a second by Rojas. Any further discussion on that before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the petition for approval. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, a petition for alteration to the platted utility easement, Watson 2022 is approved 6-0. And we'll go to our final item of the night, the city manager's report, which is provided in the laydown.
Okay, thanks for hanging in there. I'll go through this as quickly as possible. Before the next regular meeting, we'll be discussing the city manager and chief of police transition and what the next steps are for that. As shared earlier, the RAISE grant application was unsuccessful, but we do have funds to hire a grant writer if that is of interest to the council. And aside from RAISE, there's also the Rural Ports and Barge Landing Program offered from DOT at the state, as well as the DOT Resiliency and Coastal Protection Program and the state's Tier 1 Harbor Improvements funding. And then something that I'm hoping we can talk about as part of the September 26th meeting is the city's participation in the Community Transportation Program, the CTP, which is basically like the STIP, if I'm understanding it right, the State Transportation Improvement or Infrastructure Program. Before they weren't allowing marine transportation infrastructure to be on the STIP, and now they are. And the commissioner of DOT, when he was here on the dock, said it would be a viable project. So we can discuss that too next meeting. Our second quarter reported sales tax figures are ready, so you can see how Soldovia did this quarter versus 2021, 2020, and 2019. So if we were only had the 4.5% sales tax for the second quarter, which is April through June, this year we brought in over $77,000. Compare that to 2019, which was 51,000. And so it's been, there was a dip because of the pandemic in 2020. So you see 43,000 there, and then it goes back up to 67, almost $68,000 for 2021. So you can see the steady increase. And with the 2% for the grader and then public works and maintenance, that brought in over $34,000 in our regular sales tax. And then if you add remote sales tax to that, it's estimated that so far this year, the city has raised almost $40,000 for the road grader, which would meet as long as NC Machinery and Cat Finance have still held in those same rates, we would meet our annual payment for the road grader, or maybe even more. So that's underway. Another fantastic thing that happened was our finance officer got a $26,000 grant from FEMA's Assistance to Firefighters to purchase a Stryker power load unit for the ambulance to help prevent back injury for first responders lifting and taking people out of the ambulance. So please thank Jan for her hard work in helping Soldovia get that grant. There'll be a resolution accepting it on your next meeting agenda, I believe. And then on top of that, I don't know if this is what they're calling it. I'm thinking of it as a medicine agreement. So the fire department and EMS has to buy a certain amount of medicine. It's only sold in this quantity though, which is more expensive for the city. And so finally the city of Homer and Soldovia have come up with an agreement where we'll only get a smaller portion of the medicine. So we're not spending more. So it's a great example of a public-public partnership. And on that note, I wanted to add that this Friday, the mayor, myself, SVT CEO Crystal Collier, and Homer's city manager Rob Dumichel will be meeting in Soldovia this Friday to flush out more forming public-public partnerships between the tribe and the two cities. So that's going to be happening this Friday. The contract between the city and the contractor making improvements on this building was finalized. And then there's a list in the manager's report about the progress that's been made so far. So that's underway. At a future council meeting, I'm going to be asking for budget authority for a new to Soldovia refuse truck. This comes with budget from the Community Assistance Program. We thought we were going to receive only $73,000 from the state, and they increased it to over $81,000. And then our surplus sale, which we budgeted $750 for, we made over $7,000 on. So those two sources plus the major maintenance and repair fund, I hope will be enough where we can get a new to Soldovia refuse truck so that has a lift. So that way staff aren't touching every bag multiple times, which has hazards of its own, including back injury, needles, you name it. So that's something that we're working on. The road grader, as of August 23rd, they were having heavy haul driver shortages, but they were trying to get it from Kansas to Seattle by either the 30th or the 31st of August. I haven't heard back yet from NC Machinery, but they know time is of the essence and the snow is coming. So more updates to come on that. We've had so many visitors in Soldovia. We had Senator Stevens, Representative Vance, DOT Commissioner Anderson, just in the past month or so, and that's on top of everyone else. So that's been really great for Soldovia. At the September 26th meeting, we're going to be having the discussion on the VPSO. And I learned initially that we were guaranteed one, but now there's a possibility for two. There is budget available, so council can discuss that at the next meeting. We did distribute the infographic for Soldovia Police that was put in everyone's PO box. And if you need copies, let me know. It's also on our website, on the city website. And let's see, legal efforts are underway to remove the Geskimo. So we have a contract with the approval of our city attorney to work with Birch Horton, Bittner, and Sherrod to remove the Geskimo, which is in some bank mortgage divorce complexity. So we have that underway. The Soldovia Fuel and Lube roofs, Wade Hall has done such a great job in trying to fix the leaks. So please thank him for all of his heroic efforts in climbing up there and applying this nasty black stuff to the roof and replacing all the skylights with roof material. Unfortunately, the Fuel and Lube building on the dock still has issues. It's still puddling. So that may require something more substantial, but at least we are figuring that out. Councilmember Sweat, I hope you don't mind. I'm calling you Soldovia's fairy godmother, FERRY, fairy godmother, for all the work that you did with the businesses to get over 150 Soldovian signatures on that letter, which was submitted not just to DOT for the winter schedule of the ferry, but also to Alaska Municipal League, who's right now advocating for more funding for ferries in Alaska. So that was really awesome. Great to see that happen. And then as an aside, we're working on getting ferry swag, specifically a beanie at the recommendation of Sue. That would be great swag for our ferry crew to have, but we also want to order more so that residents of Soldovia or visitors can also buy it. It'll have the Testamina on it with MV Testamina. So that's underway. We still need a fire chief. And wanted to give a shout out to Liz Diamant, Melody Hall, Helly Hansen, and Robin. I don't know Robin's last name, but they did complete their EMS course training and certification. We've been having grease in our lift station, the lift station by Inside Beach. Someone is pouring a substantial amount of grease down the drain, and that is very costly in numerous ways. So please tell people don't pour grease down the drain. The schedule for the land sale is in the manager's report, if that's and how that'll be considered by the council. So if everything still goes according to administrative plan, there'll be an ordinance in the second meeting in October about that. There's a response to Councilmember Payton's questions about paint and fire hydrants in here. There's a response from DOT regarding signage in the airports around here in the manager's report. The schedule for wastewater improvements is also in the manager's report regarding the Soldovia Slough and alternate wastewater treatment plan. HDR Inc. was our engineer selected by the state to write the planning document for wastewater treatment in Soldovia. Today, Alaska Housing Finance Corporation was in Soldovia doing building monitoring efforts of this building. Radzi helped. Thank you so much, Radzi. We have sensors now in this building, so it'll be really interesting to see what the improvements to the building will do from that COVID grant in terms of ventilation, temperature, CO2, lighting, energy. So that's underway. Speaking of Radzi, wanted to give him a shout out for helping us make a user-friendly guide for how to operate the water treatment plant. You still need some training to operate the plant. It's not just a piece of cake. It's really, really complex, but we have these really big binders, like multiple ones up there. And this is like a document probably about this size now, 50 pages, but it's broken out in a more user-friendly way with a map and more beneficial for the city in terms of operating the plant. And then the harbor is now in its winter spring schedule. So Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 5. And then something else I just wanted to share with the council. It's the last thing. apparently last year or the beginning of this year, DOT actually issued an RFP to get a business interested in commercial vehicle and passenger transport in South Central Alaska as a complement to the ferry system. And no one bid on it. So the commissioner said if we knew of someone in this region that was interested in entering into that line of business, so it would complement the ferry system, but they would still need the capacity to have cars on it and people, to let DOT know. So I know that, we're cheering on the Testameter replacement. It's supposed to happen by 2026 or 2027, but the state just released its, there was an article this evening about the ferry system moving together plan. The governor has really trying to prioritize less frequent disruptions of ferry service, and this would be one model to do that. So spread the word if there's any businesses out there or people that have that capacity, which I don't know of any, but maybe there is someone out there with a big boat. This would be that opportunity. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions or comments for the manager on her report? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Rachel. Item O, informational items not requiring action. There's notice of regular election, October 4th, 2022. And there will be a 4 p.m. work session on September 26, 2022 to discuss the city manager and chief of police transitions. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Sweat.
Just the usual, thank you to the staff for all the hard work that they do. And thanks to the council for being here, and thank you for the folks that spoke tonight.
Thank you. Rojas.
Well, I can't say it anything better than that. The staff, again, is fantastic. Rachel, you do an amazing job. And everybody else who helps. And ladies, thank you for hanging out for the whole time. And your input is appreciated. Thanks.
Thanks, Vivian. Kennedy.
I don't have anything else tonight.
Okay. Swick.
No comment.
Peyton.
Same story. Thank you, everybody who worked and presented and who came and participated.
Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, I chased another helicopter off the run-up pad out at the airport. I wish we could somehow get the state to just put some signage up, paint a notice on the pad would be fine. It took us about 20 years to get them to put the pad in there, and now every time you turn around, some guy with a helicopter's parked on it. So
maybe we need a helicopter pad too, George.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I had one comment. I got the opportunity, me and my wife, last week to also go up and attend the Taco Tuesday school open house. And yeah, I was surprised how many people showed up. It was really busy up there, pretty packed. So it was good to see that good of a turnout. And the principal, Scott, told me that we have 54 kids right now currently enrolled. So that's good. I remember just a few years ago, we were slipping under 30. So nice to see that turnaround at the school, and hopefully we'll continue to get our numbers up and keep them up there. So thanks to the staff for everything tonight. Really appreciate all the good information. Next meeting will be a regular meeting held on September 26th at 6 p.m. And obviously we have the work session prior to that. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Any objections? Okay, hearing none, we are adjourned tonight. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
You too. See you later.
Yep, thanks, everyone.
Was that Swick that seconded the motion to adjourn?
There's about 4 of them.
I know.
We'll call it Swick.
Okay. Just for my notes. Thank you,
All
guys.
right, thanks. Yep, bye.